Good afternoon. Lean back a little bit. This thing is nice and loud. So good to see everyone this afternoon. My name is Tommy Anderson, and I'm the chairman of the board of directors for Family Heritage House. I'd like to welcome you this afternoon to the 100th birthday celebration of Miss Fredi Brown. She's co-founder of the Family Heritage House Museum. I'd like to start by thanking you so much for taking time from your busy schedules to be with us today. To know Ms. Brown is to love Mrs. Brown. So you'll see some things today, some memorabilia that will hopefully take you back to some of the times that you spent with her and some of the other items that you may have been able to do in your time here around Family Heritage House Museum or at State College of Florida. So thank you so much for joining us at our celebration for a wonderful woman, her legacy, and the wealth of knowledge that she shared, and the love that she shared with both us and the community. I could go on, but again, my only role today is to welcome you. So welcome. Welcome to the celebration of the lady, the legend, and the legacy of Miss Fredi Brown.
Well, now that you've been welcomed, let's see why we're all here. We pause today as a time to remember, not only remember, but to acknowledge the life and legacy of Fredi Sears Brown on the eve of her 100th birthday. Her birthday is actually tomorrow, December 4th. We're hoping, we were hoping that she would be here with us to celebrate this occasion. Wouldn't she be happy? But our Almighty God saw it differently. There are all kinds of people, all types of people in this world. There are some people that preach their virtues. There are those who express their lives by how they live and what they do. Leonardo da Vinci reminds us that there are born visionaries. That type was Fredi Brown. She was always looking for ways to enrich the lives of others, not focused on herself. Whether it was the students here at State College, Manatee Community College during her days, or her church family, her sorority, or her community as a whole. It was always about others. The one we celebrate today was never, ever satisfied with just being here on this earth. She impacted the lives of everybody she touched. And she impacted them in ways that will be forever remembered by them. There's so many stories to be told. We'd be here several days if we told all the stories. And so many lives have been enriched because of her, mine included. I was a little old girl from Georgia that really didn't know anybody when I came to Bradenton, but I met Fredi Brown. As a result of knowing and interacting with her and seeing her determination to do something for this community that would last forever was always very inspiring to me. So over the last month or so, the Family Heritage House family has made contact with a small, and I repeat, small sampling of those who knew her. And we asked them to share their stories of experiences and memories that they have of Fredi Sears Brown and the development of Family Heritage House. I think you're in for a treat this afternoon. So, this is the occasion that we celebrate today, surely celebrating her soon-to-be 100th birthday. But more importantly than that, we are here to celebrate the legacy that she's left behind in cooperation with her husband, Ernest Brown. So sit back, enjoy. That is our occasion. Thank you.
Mrs. Brown was an exceptional woman, and I feel very blessed to have known her. Through her well-lived life, she has left a remarkable legacy in our community and at State College of Florida. For a brief period of time, Fredi and I were neighbors, and it would bring joy to my heart to see her walk to the mailbox. She was such a tiny little woman, but such an incredible force of nature. Many are not aware that Mrs. Brown founded the Family Heritage House Museum and personally collected and donated most of the objects in the museum. Fredi and Ernest's original vision to inspire children to have a respect for their ancestors, a love for learning, and a passion for service is near to my heart and something this college also aspires to do. I look forward to seeing her legacy live on in the museum, and am always inviting community members to visit. You can see a lovely plaque at the entrance of the Heritage House in our Bradenton Campus Library and Learning Center that commemorates Fredi and her husband and their work to share Black heritage with our community. I believe Fredi is smiling down on us and would be proud of the work the Heritage House Museum Board and Kathy Marsh continue to do. Happy birthday, Mrs. Brown.
Hello, my name is Karen Lowe Washington, and when I think of Mrs. Brown, Mrs. Fredi Sears Brown, I think of two words, hope and a future. 47 years ago in 1976, I met Mrs. Brown. I was 18 years old, just graduated from high school, and I was introduced to her the summer of 1976. When I went to the campus of MJC, Mrs. Brown and I talked, and she wanted to know what I was interested in, what did my future look like. And after we talked for about 30, 45 minutes, Mrs. Brown decided that she would offer me my first scholarship. And the name of the scholarship was Future Unlimited. And little did I know, at that time, after meeting Mrs. Brown, my future really was unlimited. In 1978, Mrs. Brown took a chance on me. She gave me my first job at MCC, and the name of the office was Equal Access, Equal Opportunity. Mrs. Brown believed in me and what I could bring to that office, and as the years passed, we became a team of support and belief in the underprivileged student. We built a professional relationship as well as a personal relationship. We worked together for 11 years, impacting the lives of students just like us. And as I watched Mrs. B through the years, she was an awesome role model. Things she taught me and the belief that she had in me, I still carry that throughout my life today. Mrs. Brown was a jewel, and I tell you, we started out as professionals together, we became friends, and then we became family. I miss her terribly. She would be proud to know today that I'm still impacting the lives of underprivileged students. I'm still looking and picking up and trying to impact those that are lost, and I'm still working with middle school and high school girls, trying to, just instill in them that they can be so much better than they are. And I can end with this, Mrs. Brown, I love you. I thank you for everything that you poured into my life, and I love you forever.
My name is Isaiah Kelly Tyson Miller. Mrs. Fredi Sears Brown was my mentor for nearly 50 years. I first met Mrs. Brown in 1974 when her family moved to Bradenton from Detroit. I was in 10th grade at Manatee High School, and my parents, Isaiah and Irma Kelly, loved her. When I started college at MJC, now SEF, Mrs. Brown was the first African American English professor at MJC. But she quickly advanced up the administrative ladder to become the college's recruiter and director of equal access programs. One fact that I remember about Mrs. Brown when I met her, she made it clear that she loved God first and foremost, and she also made it clear that she loved her family. In the year of 2000, 26 years after I met her, after she had served as my mentor, I was on SCF's faculty representative strategic planning committee for the Family Heritage House. Mrs. Brown told me that the museum at SCF would be named Family Heritage House, and I asked her why. I remember her words distinctly. She said to me, Isaiah, historical truths will live and thrive through family bonding. She was a visionary, a true visionary. Before Mrs. Brown transitioned, I was able to thank her for face to face. I was able to thank her for her tireless, unwavering support of me and of so many other college students and high school students in the area. In 1997, I became a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated because of her. I was the first African American female to be promoted to full professor at SCF. I was the first African American female to serve as department chair with her support. I was the first African American female to serve as graduation mace bearer with the support of my mentor, Mrs. Fredi Brown. I am the first female to achieve the distinction and title of Professor Emerita at SCF. Again, I was able to thank Mrs. Brown face to face, in person, for her unwavering support. She was the quintessential queen of scholarly research and cataloging and archiving and historical truths. But, however, she consistently, habitually, strategically rejected any form of recognition. She rejected blatant, outright flattery, such as this. At this moment, however, I shall ignore her request and steal a brief second to uplift my mentor, my friend, because so many of her students, like me, share a special bond with Mrs. Fredi Sears Brown that will endure forever. Thank you.
Two of my most prevalent memories of my mother are her daily, sometimes hourly, insistence that we not end sentences with prepositions, and her soft singing of When You Wish Upon a Star. Mom was a fierce social activist, a dedicated educator, a brilliant writer, a passionate historian, and a better-than-average homemaker. Although the five of us, including my dad and my three siblings, had our unique food desires, Mom accommodated each of us individually at every meal. Her bread and pie making were legendary. Mom left a community legacy that is rarely rivaled, certainly in Detroit and Bradenton, and I am sure her impact was greatly appreciated in other stops she made around the country. But the support, guidance, inspiration, and motivation that she gave to me are a gift that keeps on giving.
I met Mrs. Brown and her husband Ernest when they were inviting people to review their display of historical memorabilia and books at the Head Start. It was a little trailer at the Head Start campus in East Bradenton. It was a cozy little place, and they were so excited about sharing Black history, or any kind of history, I guess you'd say American history, with other African Americans and the general public. And they were kind of disappointed that people weren't coming. She and her husband were so excited when the museum moved to the Bradenton campus. But the sad thing was that just seems like a few years after that, her husband suffered a heart attack and died on their way to visit their daughter in South Florida. So Fredi was doing the museum by herself. She had help, but her lifetime partner wasn't there. And I could feel the loss, the pain she felt of, the pain of widowhood, because I had experienced the same thing with the loss of my husband in 1996. So I think we bonded that way with both of us being widows. And when her assistant went on to move to California, and then she had another assistant for a while, and then she was out without any help. I volunteered to help recruit somebody. And so I was going through all these ideas and suggestions about how to recruit, and Fredi said, well, why don't you do it? And I said, but I don't have any experience with museums. And she said, you can learn, or something to that effect. And so I applied for the job, and I was became her assistant. And Fredi opened up that part of my mind and my heart to take in more of Black history that I wasn't exposed to in the past. And I remember especially Fredi was so proud of the trunk her husband had, and she would show it off. Her husband, Ernest, was really into Black history, and he had a trunk that talked about Black cowboys. And I thought, we had Negro cowboys, really? And she said, yes. And Ernest, I remember when he used to talk about it. And that was also a joyful experience, and even now that comes back to mind. I also remember her disappointment, and I was included in that. We were a little bit disappointed at the school that the African American students didn't make themselves visitors, didn't visit the museum more often. I was surprised that the students that came from various foreign countries were more interested in African American history than the African American students. And Freddie and I talked about that a little bit in our disappointment. I enjoyed the growth that I had in working with Freddie at Family Heritage House Museum. I enjoyed working with the artists that were there, Gail Fulton Ross and Fayanne Hayes and many others. It was just so much fun to be exposed to that, both history and art. And I thank you, Freddie, for that chance for me to grow and to appreciate a broader perspective of mankind. Thank you, and happy 100th birthday.
I'm so glad to be here to give you a background of Miss Fredi Brown. She was a special lady. My name is Kathy Marsh. I am the museum specialist here at Family Heritage House Museum. I came here temporarily about 17 years ago. And if you know anything about Miss Fredi Brown, when she says it, it's supposed to be done. So I was here for a period of time and thinking that I was going to leave, and she let me know that she had written a letter to God to send the right person for the job. So how can I tell God he made a mistake? So here I am, like I said, 17 years later, loving the position that she put me in and loving her as a person still. I miss her daily because she was such an inspiration. And when I think of the duties that I have as Family Heritage House Museum Specialist, I think of her and I want her to be proud. I don't want her looking down with me with that look that she gives you when something isn't right. I want her smiling down. And as we celebrate the 100th birthday of Miss Fredi Brown, I think what a wonderful memory that I have of her before I worked at the museum and since I've been here. Again, the temporary thing just went away when she told me God sent me here. And I just love it. I enjoy my job. I have to say that I live and breathe Family Heritage House Museum because it means so much to me. And I know it meant so much to her and Mr. Brown. But it's amazing how when I walk around the museum, I feel her presence at all times. I know that she's looking down, and I pray that she's still proud of the way that I handle this position because it means a lot to me. It's not really a position, it's a lifestyle, because I know that the history of African Americans locally and nationally and internationally has to be told. And a lot of things are misunderstood and a lot of things are unknown. And it's my job to continue the legacy that she started so many years ago. She and Mr. Brown started in a trailer behind Head Start on the east side of town. And when Dr. Korchak, who was the president of Manatee Community College at the time, said it needed a permanent facility. So he actually sold a boat to start the capital campaign to build the building that we were in prior to this beautiful setting. And they moved them on the campus. And we've been here ever since. It's a blessing that the school has all in these years taken care of necessities for the museum, for my position, and we have a separate board of directors, which a wonderful board of directors that make sure things are done properly. And we have a member of the upper staff here at State College of Florida that's on our board. And so we have aspects from the community, from inside the school, and so forth. And it's just a wonderful relationship. I'd like to take this time to thank the Browns, Mrs. Fredi Sears Brown, Mr. Ernest Brown, for their contribution to African American history locally, nationally, and internationally. It's been a blessing to this community and beyond.
Fredi Brown. I cannot even remember how or when I met Fredi. I do know that it's been well over 20-something years, because once I met Fredi, it was like knowing her all of my life. She was a mighty little woman. And I met Ernest, and together learned more and more about their history and all that they were trying to do for the culture, and bringing together keepsakes and memories and collectibles and anything they could that would create the legend and the legacy, not only for the people that made contributions to our culture, but for those young people coming up who might never know, might forget. But for those of us who are still here, a place that they were trying to create gives us the power and the words and the understanding of who we are and what we have done. She fought for that in every way, and I think many of you in the room, and I'm so sorry I am not there, but I am. And the fact that Fredi and Ernest are always with me in some way means that there's no way that I'm not celebrating this woman who would have been 100 years old and did so much in her whole life. I can only hope that my knowing her and what I'm trying to do with my own life, with my own work, mimics in some way a contribution from Fredi Brown. I remember that Faye Ann Hayes and I were asked to help Fredi put together her first exhibition. And it was in another building, in another place. And Faye and I came together, met Fredi, who I just, recognized as a little dynamo, because we'd say this and we'd say that, and she'd say, no, I want this and I want that, and I'd say, okay, and so it is. And that was the way Fredi and I worked. I let myself understand that she was my elder. She witnessed what she was trying to demonstrate. I am an observer. I am an artist. I observe, I think, I see. But Fredi did it. Now, I also was asked to create a bronze plaque of Fredi and Ernest which was not easy to do because at that time, that is not something I did. But I have to say, as an artist, I never say no. I'm going to try it at least. And so I did. It was successful. I thought that I would have tried to put some more detail in it and a little this and a little that. But when Fredi signed off on it, that was all I needed. So I know I'm a part of Family Heritage House Museum. I know I am. And I want to see this place be here when my granddaughters come through. They're 11 and 6, so you got plenty of time. I need to say one other thing. I lost a very important easel one day. It was an easel that my father had given to me when I was very young, and now that I'm not young, and that easel had much more meaning than it ever did, somehow, I don't know, it got left behind. I don't even remember where. And one day I walk into Family Heritage House Museum, and Ernest says to me, I think I have something of yours. And it had been months. And there was the easel that my father had given to me at least 30-something years prior. So when I tell you, they were more than just collectors. They had a humanity that I wish more of us had today. So when you celebrate Fredi, you're celebrating Ernest, and you're celebrating the accomplishment of this place. Remember deeper than just her skin and bones. There's a power behind people that are like Fredi and Ernest. I love them. I love them. Thank you, Fredi Brown. Thank you, Ernest, for everything you have done for our community.
Good afternoon. I'm John Cena Williams McRae. I'm a Manatee County native, like Fredi Brown. And when I met Fredi, it was like family. My mother taught school here in Manatee County for 40-plus years, and there's a school named for her in Parrish, Florida, the Anna Lucy Williams Elementary School. My mother taught Fredi, and I could always rely on Fredi to give me an Anna Lucy Williams story. So I always enjoyed being around Fredi because it was like that last link to my mother. Also, her mother, your grandmother, Miss Mary Hall, was a member of the Gladiola Chapter number 121, Order of Eastern Star. See, I know that behind. And my mother was the worthy matron for years, and Miss Hall was her staunch supporter. Fredi even had the hats that my mother crocheted, all the ladies, in the Eastern Star chapter. So I've eaten dinner at Fredi's house. She was my neighbor. But like I said, I always could get a story about my mother from Fredi, about when she was pregnant with me. I mean, she went on and I was like, oh, she's going to tell those stories. But then I love those stories. But I want to relay and heard saying here about when Fredi was in the trailer. I was out of town when she moved in the trailer. And at the time I was on the board of Manatee Community College. I was on the board of directors. So she invited me to come. My brother was in town at the time, so both of us went to see Fredi in the trailer. And it had rained, so water was coming in, the floor was kind of warped. She was afraid some of the collection was going to get damaged, especially the paper work that she had was going to get damaged. And she said, we have to move to another place. So as we looked around, Officer Merrill came in. He's from Robonia, the Merrill family. He's a Manatee County police officer, a county police officer. So as we were walking around, and rain was coming in, and we were commiserating, oh, there has to be something done, he said, let us pray. So we all stood in a circle, Freddie, my brother, and Officer Merrill, and he prayed this wonderful prayer that something's going to happen, something is going to come of, of this collection. You can't let it be destroyed here. So after we prayed and he left, we were getting ready to leave, and Freddie said, that's it, something's going to be done. He said, here was a man of God praying, and he had a gun. And I was like, she said, I know something's going to happen. And sure enough, at the next board meeting, Kovacic said somebody had donated a boat. You heard Kathy March say, and he sold that boat, and that was the beginning of the capital campaign to move Freddie out of that trailer into the first facility that they were in. And I was there for the groundbreaking. I stood next to Ms. Hall, and she had her hat on. But that was Freddie. I mean, she saw something out of that, for her to notice that this man of God was praying, this beautiful prayer, and he had this gun. He had his uniform on, and he did have a gun. It was a big gun. She said that was prophetic. So that was Freddie. That was my storyteller. I could always get a mom warm, fuzzy when I was with Freddie, because she loved to tell stories.
I'd like to thank everyone who made this celebration of my mother possible, and for everybody who's here participating today. Family Heritage House is an important and valuable contribution to this community. It's not only important for the history, the artifacts, and stories exhibited here, but also for the example it sets as an African American institution within the community. When my mother and father began the Family Heritage House in a trailer on the grounds of Head Start, as referred several times before, they never dreamed it would end up in this beautiful building and location. Her vision was to reach as many people as she could and show them there was a lot more to African American history than what was commonly shown on TV or even taught in school. She was proud to show that Bradenton and Florida had a rich history. She also wanted to encourage every family to learn and examine their own family history and heritage. She was very proud to know that the Family Heritage House would outlive her and of the legacy she left behind. Freddie Brown was loved by so many because she was a tireless giver. She gave of her time, her experience, her connections, her money, and her heart. The Family Heritage House was the biggest gift of all. Finally, I want to share a personal example of my mother's giving nature. As my wife Kay began her memoir, she shared the introduction she had written with my mother. My mother, not given to readily show emotion, got very excited at hearing Kay's writing and said, "That was amazing. I was an English major and teacher, and that is good writing." Her encouragement gave Kay the courage to continue and finish her book. My only regret is that my mother did not get a chance to read the book before she passed.
My name's Ginger Hill. Say a little prayer because I'm nervous up here. Thank you, Mrs. Edwards, for remembering me and inviting me. She asked if I'd give a testimonial. If I knew it was formal behind a microphone and a podium, I might have run screaming. So I'm glad I made it. And before I forget, I also want to thank her children. I was lucky enough to meet Mrs. Brown right after college. And not only Mrs. Brown, but her husband as well. And so you had not one but two heroes as parents. And I know that wasn't always easy because you had to share them with the rest of us. So I just want to thank you for that. I met Mrs. Brown right after college. The late John Sims introduced me to her, and he was giving me a rough time because, like, an archivist, a curator, basically insinuating that's boring. Why would you want to do that? And I was rattling off my reasons, and I said, well, really, these stories need to be told, and it's about freedom. We need these stories to continue that and build a better world. And he goes, oh, then you need to meet Miss Brown. And that's how I came to know Mrs. Brown and her husband. And I volunteered for a while and then became her assistant. I'll never forget one of the other volunteers said, you've been around a while, you can call her Fredi, you know, like you're part of the family now. I said, oh no, I can't, that is Mrs. Brown. Because even then, in my young and dumb 20s, I knew just to sit and listen to their stories was a gift, because you're really sitting at the feet of the masters listening to history and advice. And both of them got me through they taught me nuggets of how to be an adult, which I'm still learning, and things that I've carried with me. And I wrote down some of the things I wanted to share with you, mainly when she was training me to give tours, but they were so much more than that. So the first one, and I'm sure all of you have seen this, when people would come in, she'd ask a question to get to know something specific about them, because she always had something for you, because she wanted to, and she just had this gift. She did it naturally. She didn't have to work at it. And I think the testimonials speak to that. She'd pick out your flame, that one little light you have, and she'd fuel it. And if you came back a few weeks later, she would have certain things pulled from the collection just for you. And she did that again and again. And she taught me that all of us have that really unique light that we need to share. And so her work was about the preservation, but specifically to fuel those unique lights that we all carry, that only you can bring in. And the other thing, I still chuckle, she says, look, everyone will come in here and know about Martin Luther King Jr., but every time I want you to remember the women who stayed up all night doing the mimeographs. This was before Facebook, of course, during the civil rights movement, because the movement is never a person. It's never one person at a podium. It's never a speech. It's the mimeograph women, the women who made the meals so those plantings could happen, the women who took care of the children so that people could do sit-ins. And she said, teach everyone that comes in that you have something to contribute, that a movement is not about one person, that no matter how small, it's big. The other thing, and I think it's come across that she was a fire pistol, like if she said it, it happened, but she also had this sense of humor. We were talking one day and she said, well, Ginger, you know the real reason that the civil rights movement still has so much work to do, and keep in mind I'm in my young 20s and I'm leaning in because I'm expecting political strategy or a legal theory, or I'm leaning in, and she said, we picked the wrong song. And she said, we shall overcome. It's just slow. And we haven't yet, have we? She said, we're climbing Jacob's ladder. And she belted into song every time. And she said, now that's a song. And that's the last thing I'll say, is that she said, we get there together. We can only build a better world by uplifting together. And I think that's why she loved that song, because she said, we're climbing Jacob's ladder, and that it took step by step, that it was all of us together. I was also her assistant when Mr. Brown passed away. And so I was so lucky to get to spend so much time with her. And she gave me so many skills during that era that I didn't know I would need later. And so we lost my father last year, and so I've been with my mother and the rest of my family going through that. But you just don't know the lessons you're learning, and that'll be applied years later. And one of the things that she kept coming back in that was, when you think you're going through something hard, know that other people have been through something harder. And she said, have faith and give yourself time to heal. And I myself have leaned on that again and again and again. So I'm just so happy to have gotten to know her at such a pivotal point. It sounds like she sought those of us out that were in that crossroads of our lives, and that she could really guide me so much, but also just by her presence. And that's a presence that's going to continue. So thank you, guys.
Okay, well, good afternoon. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Beverly Brown Nash, the Brown's daughter, and I want to thank you all for coming to this tribute for my mother. As we heard, and as most of you know, my mom had a positive impact on many lives. I invite you to take a walk through the museum. If you would like a more thorough introduction, please call back and make an appointment with Kathy Marsh, the museum specialist. I'd like to say a special thank you to Charles Clapsaddle and METV for helping us capture the community voices and document this moment in time. Since this is a birthday celebration, we have a gift for each of you. Please take one from the table upstairs, I guess, is where they are. Kathy, where are you? Okay. And now let's get the party, this portion of the party on. So let's party.
Okay, I can't use my church voice here. All right, no problem. I think the best thing to do, Sister Nash, is to just do it. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. Soldiers of the cross, every round goes higher and higher. Every round goes higher and higher. Every round goes higher and higher. Soldier of the cross. I'll stop there, because if I sing another verse, you all might not ever invite me back anymore. So, and I want to at least keep the invitation open. I think the thing that I am most impressed about in this setting is that nowhere is the word black to be found. We all have one history. And this lady and her husband spent a lifetime trying to assimilate that part of history that is unique to Manatee County and unique to the African American population. She tried to bring us together. If our legacy, if her legacy is to live on, it is to be found in us doing the same thing. If we can break bread together, we can break the things that separate us. If we can break bread together, we can break down the walls that keep us apart. And so as we move from this fellowship to the eating, let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, and our Mother, we thank you for the life that this sister and this brother have lived and the legacy that they have left. May it be as nourishing to our spirits and to our souls as the food that we're about to receive is nourishing to our bodies. Move now in a mighty way in the rest of our lives, that when it is time for us to leave a legacy, there might be those who will say about us, "Well done, thy good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things." We invite you now to come on up to be ruler over many. And together, those who would agree said, Amen.